you understand?
Hey everybody, I'm Tony Jones, and welcome to the Tony Jones Show.
People are willing to take the risk. It's just sort of a herd mentality, a lemming-like mentality. If you don't go with the flow, you're anti-American and therefore a suspect.
The Tony Jones Show, featuring punk, rockabilly, psychobilly, and Providence, Rhode Island's finest, starts right now.
He's a dangerous militia member, I hear. Oh, and there she blows.
Day by day they slumber in the fog, and when shadows fall, stones turn into gargoyles. Guards of eternal palaces of grief from dismal dreams. Silhouettes of monsters on the solid walls spread their wings and fly away above it all. Night will come and set them free, but back by dawn they must be gargoyles. Born not from a carver's hand, they are sinister and dark, children of the wicked, guards of eternal palaces of grief from dismal dreams. Silhouettes of monsters on the solid walls spread their wings and fly away above it all. Night will come and set them free, but back by dawn they must be gargoyles. Silhouettes of monsters on the solid walls spread their wings and fly away above it all. Night will come and set them free, but back by dawn they must be gargoyles.
Friends, the time for mediocrity and broadcasting is over. My name is Tony Jones, and you are tuned in to the Tony Jones Show, your destination for talk and rock, online at TonyJones.org. I'm on Facebook. It's Facebook.com/Tony Jones Show. On the almighty Twitter at Tony Jones in RI. Great to be back here with you, off for a few weeks, eating my way through Rhode Island. Now, I don't want to steal too much from my friends over at My Night Out Radio. However, I managed to eat my way through the Washington County Fair, which, of course, if you are familiar with fair cuisine, it was the utmost healthiest cuisine possible. And then last week, I felt like a cheater, because you guys know that I am a tried and true fan of the famous Narragansett beer. However, last Sunday, which is why we weren't here in studio, I was at the Newport Storm Luau enjoying some Newport Storm beers. And if you don't know, and again, I don't want to talk too much about hospitality. We have other fine folks around here that do that. But Newport Storm also owns Thomas II rum. And, a lot of you who listen to this on the regular basis know I'm a big fan of the tiki type stuff. So I threw on the cheesiest Hawaiian shirt I could find, and I went on down to the Newport Storm Luau. And now you guys all know that I am probably behind Andre the Giant in being one of the world's foremost executive drunks. And even I thought that there was a heavy pour on the booze there. In fact, it was one of those situations where you bought the tokens to get the drinks, one of those type deals. I actually managed to buy too many tokens for the mixed drinks because they were that strong. And, of course, with me, there's always kind of a community nonprofit aspect. The Newport Storm Luau, which I had never been to before. This was the 17th annual Newport Storm Luau. and it's all to benefit the historic Fort Adams Trust. So it was a great day, and those guys did a great job, and I can't believe I've never been to this event before, and I will be at this event next year. They had a full lineup of local music. Seven Hats Parade was there. Public Alley was there. They had fire dancers, and it was all in this historic setting. So it was great, and that's something we're going to look to supporting in the future. Of course, I'd be remiss if I didn't mention, before we get to our guests, our own big show coming up. It's going to be the Rhode Island Free Radio anniversary party. Now, I got to give DJ Psycho Eddie credit on this one because I'm absolutely swamped. So I said down here, hey, Eddie, would you like to take the lead on the anniversary party? And in fact, that's what he did. It's all booked up. It's going to be a great night. It's going to be a great weekend, in fact. So I hope you guys can all come down to that. Of course, go to rifreeradio.org, mynightoutri.com to get all your information. I hope you can come down and party with us. And it's we're going to have our own Chuckles the Clown emceeing. He will not be doing his act. He will be emceeing. We're going to have local music all night. 13 Folds will be there. We're going to have vendors, of course. Back to my pals at Narragansett. Those guys always step up for me. Narragansett Beer sponsoring the night. So maybe, just maybe, we'll have a little drinky poo together. That's going to be happening in just a few weeks' time. Labor Day weekend, the Saturday of Labor Day. Firehouse 13 in Providence. I hope you can all make it out to that. And I would be remiss again if I didn't mention we kicked off with, he's one of my favorites. He's Michael Graves, the new album, Night of Sam Hain, Gargoyles, the track we kicked things off with. Let's get to our in-studio guest, because we've been talking about here on the show. There's so much great stuff going on, and we were just off the air talking about fanboys. I feel like I'm a Rhode Island fanboy when I'm talking about all the great stuff that's going on. There is this stretch between now and the end of the year where there's just all kind of great stuff going on. And so we're going to be talking here on the show to musicians. We're going to be talking to filmmakers. We're going to be talking to artists and graphic novelists. And this is my first time ever having, we've had some authors on. This is my first time ever having graphic novelists on the show. And these are two folks that I run into probably at every single freaking convention. You guys are almost as busy as I am. You guys are like at every convention. Frankie Washington's here, JL Metcalf. Thank you guys.
Hey, what's going on?
So, I did the research for the show. You guys, like us, like kind of everybody around here, have multiple projects going on. So instead of me trying to go through your resume, I'm going to let you guys explain your multiple projects.
Okay. Well, JL?
Oh,
you
thanks.
Yeah, there you go.
Oh, you're
right
such
on.
a gentleman. So I'm an author, and Frankie he's done the covers of 2 of my books. I have 3 books out right now. One is a fantasy novel. It's called The Last Daughter of Lilith. The second is Coming Undone. It's a nonfiction memoir kind of book, so it's a little different from my other 2. And then my most recent book that just came out about a month ago is Menagerie of the Weird, and it's a collection of short stories, and it's horror stories, sci-fi, and they're all set in Rhode Island because
Nice.
I'm a Rhode Island girl. And then, like I said, Frankie did the covers for my first and third books, and we go to conventions and working on stuff with him.
Yes, very secret projects. But my name's I tend to go by Frankie B. Washington because I'm sure that there's some killer out there named Frankie Washington somewhere. But anyway, I've been doing freelance illustration for like 24 years. I've worked as a film, I've worked in animation, I worked in advertising, but as well as doing role-playing game artwork for various source books. But currently, I'm working on trading cards. I'm working for a company called Sunstone Games for their brand video game called Colossal Kaiju Combat, which is about giant monsters.
Nice.
Godzilla. Giant robots and stuff. So I'm really having a ball with that. But I'm also doing a few comic book projects as well. Unfortunately, I cannot divulge what these are because they're still in the stages of they're going to be being released later on.
Are you sure you don't want to break the news here on the Tony Jones Show?
That
would be perfect.
I so wish I could. I really do wish I could. But again, it's a surprise that matters. And we're really building something up for Rhode Island Comic Con. Mm-hmm. So working very hard right now. I'm drawing like a madman, loving it. And Yeah.
It's such a content. You spoke earlier about a series being about weird stuff. Rhode Island is such a content-rich environment for where, as we sit here in one of the oldest mills in the country, there's always weird stuff going on here. Is that kind of where you're drawing some of the influences from?
I think so. Yeah. I mean, I've lived in Rhode Island my whole life, so I definitely understand how weird it can be. And and Frankie and I were talking, and Stephen King places everything in Maine.
Yes.
And has kind of put Maine as a place to be. And we thought, well, why can't Rhode Island be that way? It's weird. It's got its quirks, and weird stuff certainly can happen here. So it just seemed to make sense to kind of link all the stories together and have them placed in Rhode Island, because it's a place that I know too.
Right.
And one of the things I learned when I was in school is write what you know. So it's easier to write from a standpoint of, this is the state I grew up in, and I love Rhode Island. So.
Well, I think one of the things about it is that when I'm coming from a different kind of like comic book sort of way of looking at writing, and one of the things about it is that I tend to be more of the Jack Kirby kind of guy, where I'm like I'm like, break the rules. Let's make crazy stuff. Let's have giant monsters eating people in Providence, destroying buildings. Where JL is more like she writes in a very realistic, almost like Harry Potterish kind of way, which isn't bad. I mean, J.K. Rowling did a fantastic job with Harry Potter, but there's a real sense of the world, as well as a sense of magic. So sometimes we'll be out and about, and then I'll have I may come up with some crazy kind of idea or whatever, and I'll just be like talking to the universe,
right?
And then she'll hear it, and then she'll say, okay, let me toss that down on a Post-it, and the next thing you know, there's a small little, she'll be sort of brings it together into this, in her writing and stuff like that.
One of my favorite local comics is by a gentleman named Jason Mayhew, and all of his comics, or the comics he has out now so far, all revolve around a place here in Rhode Island called Rocky Point.
Nice.
Which
I know.
became an abandoned amusement park.
That's
which
right.
Is kind of still an abandoned amusement park.
Sure.
And, again, that's a situation where if you grew up in Rhode Island, if you're of a certain age, you were at Rocky Point every summer religiously. And then to twist kind of such a wholesome thing from your childhood and turn that almost into a horror comic, you can't beat that.
No.
And the funny part is I actually own that comic. And I met him. It was a few years ago, but I actually have that comic, and it's well done. And again, that's the thing. We both love Stephen King, and he's done such a fantastic job of sort of making Maine this mystical, interesting place. And it was already, I suppose, but but again, it's like that's what JL's trying to do right here, where she's just taking these really cool stories and just saying, okay, we're just going to toss a name, and let's throw Providence in there, or let's throw, whatever, Warwick, Cranston,
Buddy Cianci.
Yeah, there you go. Oh, snap.
Oh, man, especially you could do a whole series just on his prison years.
Yeah.
Oh. What if he was a superhero? There you go. There's a story.
Recently in North Kingstown, there's a place called Devil's Foot Rock.
Whoa.
And I like to, kind of hike out there. It's an easy hike. It's a fat guy friendly hike, in fact.
Oh, really?
That's what it is.
Okay. All right.
So I like to go hiking there fairly often, kind of go to the area. And I was surprised about how many people weren't, I guess probably because I'm into horror and Halloween and stuff. I had always grown up hearing the folklore of Devil's Foot Rock, but I was surprised to see how many people weren't aware that there was this kind of kitschy, folklore-ish, horror-ish place, right in this kind of little quiet town.
I'm just wondering, because again, I'm a recent transplant. I'm originally from Massachusetts, just moved here last April. But is that connected to the Freetown Forest?
I know it has to do with the folklore, has to do with Devil's Foot Rock, and then Purgatory up in the Worcester area of Massachusetts, and then there's kind of this New England connection of...
Because I don't know if you know the history of Freetown Forest. I mean, I vaguely know it, but supposedly there was some weird stuff that happened in the Freetown Forest, and I remember like some people were saying that you actually can walk from Freetown to Rhode Island, but I just don't know where it ended, where it would take you, so I didn't know if this was somehow connected to it.
Yeah.
So I'm going to go down to some local music. We're going to come back. We're going to talk a little bit more with our guests, because I want to know, and you probably all want to know, where they got their start. How did they break into this industry? So they can chew on that while we listen to some local music. We're going to hear from Sex Coffee now